Hi everyone. So, today I thought I would talk a bit about the information metabolism elements, or what are more commonly known as the cognitive functions. Now, I feel that a lot of people, actually I'd say probably around 99% of people who have any idea what cognitive functions even are, I think 99% of them probably are quite mistaken over what they actually are about and what the right definitions would be. Now, the reason I think this is that I think there are a lot of bad definitions going around. I think a lot of people don't really have the theoretical infrastructure to really understand these concepts properly. And so they come up with all sorts of different sorts of definitions, some of them vapid and inane, some of them just vague and just impossible to really apply or understand. What I really like about Socionics is that it gives clear, precise definitions for things. And it works out by adding and causing different dichotomies to interact. It works out very nuanced, very both rich and complex understandings of each kind of what we call an information metabolism element, what people tend to call cognitive functions. And the idea of cognitive functions is that they're not just an action like experiencing or imagining. They are rather a mix of both a fundamental category of existence, a fluid intelligence that someone can learn, adapt, and apply, and a philosophy of life. So let's look at these different things, this metaphysical, capability-oriented, and values-oriented way of understanding extroverted sensation. So first of all, I should say that extroverted sensation, extroverted sensing, as people tend to call it, is not simply experiencing. Otherwise, we'd all be ESFPs or ESTPs. I can experience lots of things. I experienced sardines in my pasta this evening, which my wife thought was quite disgusting. But that is experiencing. So no, that's not the point. If that were the case, if extrovert sensation were experiencing, and for some reason, some four function theory, people think you can only use four functions. So yeah, suddenly, if I were as an ENTP, who according to the four function theory, I don't have extrovert sensation according to them, I can't experience things, or I must be deluded in thinking I'm experiencing things. Maybe I'm putting together extrovert intuition, introvert sensation together to create some sort of fake pseudo experience. It's all nonsense, absolute nonsense. So instead, extroverted sensation, let's break down what it actually is. So first of all, extroverted sensation is a kind of sensation. But what is sensation? Well, sensation is a kind of perception. Now, what is a perception? Well, to understand what a perception is, we need to go back to this Scottish philosopher called David Hume. Now, David Hume had lots of different ideas, lots of writings, very, very interesting stuff. But one of his greatest contributions, in my opinion, is the is-ought problem. Now, what is the is-ought problem? It is basically him saying you cannot reach an ought, in other words, a should be, from an is. You can't derive what ought to be simply from how things are. That essentially articulated the key difference between the main two families of information in our existence. Descriptive information and prescriptive information. Information that simply describes what things are, could be, will be, has been, and information that tells you what ought to be, how it's supposed to be, what is correct, what is incorrect. They're two different things. Never the twain shall meet. Now, so you have perception. Within perception, you have intuition and sensation. We're talking about sensation at the moment. So sensation is the kind of perception that is both external and involved. What do those things mean? So, external is information, and this is something which it is something which Jung thought about but didn't place correctly. See, Jung was the first person to coin these ideas. There's no expectation that the originator of a set of ideas is going to be the master of them. They simply are the first person to think about them. In the same way that Homo habilis was the first hominid to use tools, supposedly. Doesn't mean they are the master of tools. Homo sapiens is far better using tools than Homo habilis. But analogy applies. So, what Jung was thinking about for external and internal, he called extroverted, introverted. That extroverted, introverted is actually something quite different. And Jung conflating external, internal with extroverted, introverted actually is the cause of most of the problems in regular JCF, Myers-Briggsy people in terms of their understanding of the cognitive functions or information metabolism elements. It's the key. It is like the place where it all went wrong. So putting it right, extrovert, introvert is one thing. External, internal is the meaningful thing here. And so sensation is perception that is external. So what is external? External is anything which is outside of us, essentially. It is stuff which you can see and I can see as well because it's not in my head. It is here. It is behind me. It is around me. It's in your room. It's on the screen you're looking at. I can see right in front of me right now my fat face, right? That is external information, okay? And you can see it too. What joy. So, yeah, that's external information. It's not internal information. That's the opposite. Internal information has to be interpreted, reinterpreted for me to communicate it to you. I don't have to interpret or reinterpret external information to communicate it to you. You see it as it is. That is external information. So the other thing is involved information. What is involved information? Well, it's simply information that you feel. You can feel it emotionally, you can feel it physically. In this case, you feel it physically. Why? Well, if I were to take this remote and whack myself over the head, I would feel that. If I were to whack someone else over the head if they were asleep, they'd probably wake up. Maybe they won't. Maybe it's too strong and maybe it actually knocked them out while they were asleep. And that's an interesting thing. If someone's actually asleep but also gets knocked out, does that mean that I cause them to lose consciousness, or are they already unconscious? Would that increase the length of sleep? What if... Oh, no, tangent. But anyway, the idea is that I feel that. Involved information is something you feel. And detached, the opposite of that, is information you don't feel. So sensation is information that's external and involved. Things which are in the world around us, we can see it, we don't have to reinterpret it to see it, we can directly share it as it is, and also we feel it. We experience it as vivacious to us. That's sensation. Now we get to extroverted sensation. So what is extroverted sensation? What I like to call the sensation of force. Well, another two dichotomies here, extroverted and introverted. Now this is the proper definition, not Jung's idea. Jung was still trying to figure this stuff out. So extroverted is turning outwards. Literally means turning outwards. What does that mean? So it is essentially an orientation towards sensation that is accumulative, that is about expanding quantity, not about refining quality. So we're talking about the accumulation of sensations, more and more and more and more and more sensations. And as opposed to introverted, which would be the refining of sensations, to narrow down the numbers of sensations. So that's the first part. The second part is static, as opposed to dynamics. What is static? Static is the idea that the information we're perceiving, whatever it is distinct in its parts from other parts. In other words, when you take this remote controller, that is a different remote controller to this remote controller. They are two separate things. This one is, a bit curvy in it. This one's a bit flat. If this one were to cease to be like this and become more like this, it would not be this anymore. It would be more like this. it would be a different object. Objects are distinct. We are talking about sensory objects, so things which are distinct from one another. Okay, and the idea that we are accumulating these sensory objects which are distinct from one another. Now, you put these things together, what do you have? You have a category of reality, the physical objects. And the thing about physical objects is that they, simply by having physical extension, by taking up space, essentially, they deprive other objects from taking up the same space. There's an inherent competition between physical objects over space. This is simply part of the electromagnetism force, which is a fundamental force of our universe. One atom and another atom can't occupy the same space. They will push each other away. Atoms have this repulsive effect on other atoms. In the same way, if I were to take this glass of water, and the Greek inventor Archimedes recognized or first noticed the very same thing when he was in the Greek baths, as I place my fist into this glass of water, you'll see what happens. The water rises. Why does the water rise? Well, it rises because my fist is more dense than that water. So the water can't sit there anymore. It has to move out of the way for my fist. Same principle applies to animals in the savannah. A hyena has just killed an antelope, right? It has jumped on the antelope, it has wrestled it to the ground, it has bitten its neck, it has caused it to die, right? The hyena is tougher than the antelope. But suddenly, a lion comes out of the bush and chases off the hyena. Why does it chase off the hyena? Because the lion is stronger than the hyena. The lion is tougher than the hyena. And the hyena will not want to occupy the same space as that lion. It will be killed if it's not careful. So, the stronger, denser life form chases away the weaker, less dense life form. This also applies to humans. Some humans are bigger, they are stronger, they are tougher, they have more willpower, they have more resources, more wealth, more connections, more things that give them the ability to get what they want, and by taking what they want, someone else loses out. Someone else misses out on the prize. This is the world of the battling of wills in the same way as physical objects battle for space. This is the fundamental idea of extroverted sensation. That you, if you are an extroverted sensation-oriented type, in your desire to accumulate as many objects as possible, to have the maximum impact and control and possession over your space by taking as many objects as you can, that you are going to be in competition with others. And if you are mightier than others, you will win and you will take more. That is the idea of extroverted sensation. So nothing to do with experiencing simply for the sake of experiencing. When you think of extroverted sensation, don't think of some sort of hippie going, yeah, my magical mushroom is rad, man. Don't do that. Don't think about extroverted sensation in that way. Think of the previous president of the United States, Donald Trump. Very clear example of extroverted sensation. Someone who knew what he wanted and went out and got it through sheer toughness and a sort of devil-may-care, blasé, action-orientedness. That's extroverted sensation, and you can see it all the way through history. Look at Winston Churchill as an example. Look at Napoleon Bonaparte as another example. Look at Alexander the Great, or Julius Caesar, or Cyrus the Great, or even some more negative examples like a Benito Mussolini, or perhaps an Attila the Hun, or Genghis Khan. He certainly got what he wanted much of the time. That is extroverted sensation. It is a tough, it is often a brutal approach to life. It is can also be a heroic approach to life. It can be that which protects the weak because it is strong and it is able to fend off other people who would take from it. But this is extroverted sensation. It is the spirit of the warrior, not the spirit of the hedonist. So yeah, that's extroverted sensation, guys. Tune in for some other explanations of cognitive functions or information metabolism elements.